Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Japanese and I'm in Japan, and I have a dark, dirty Japanese secret I want to let you guys in on. Ever since the Japanese lost World War II, they completely just had their samurai spirit broken and they just worship white people now. The best example of this I can think of is in the anime Dragon Ball Z, where Goku starts out as this Japanese monkey, and as he slowly gets stronger and levels up more and more, he evolves into a white dude with blonde hair and blue eyes, or green eyes, I guess. You know, it's not even subliminal, like it's intentional. You talk to Japanese people and they'll admit it. There's this like pervasive white worshiping in the Japanese community. You know, old Japanese paintings used to have Japanese people looking more Japanese, and now every single magazine cover or celebrity is half white, or they're like the 1% of Japanese people that have like these huge round eyes and look basically like Latin American. In every single anime, the characters have these huge eyes and long legs. And I know you guys saw the huge eyes, but you may have missed the long legs. If you actually know Japanese people and you're Japanese and you talk to them, the Japanese have this huge insecurity about having short legs, and they're often like bow-legged too. It's like an actual scientific thing. You can like look it up. It has something to do with the fact that they were on an island for a long time. So the ratio of the length of their legs to their torso is like really bad. And so the Japanese are really insecure about this, and they're insecure about having smaller eyes. So they always get like double eyelid surgeries like the South Koreans. And yeah, all their celebrities have these like huge round eyes, and they don't look like the Japanese population at all. I mean, it's just like, bro, come on, man. Like, have some self-respect, man. Have some respect for your people. All right, believe it or not, this does relate to the title of this video about why watching sports is for suckers. But you'll have to be patient. I'll circle back to it. But yeah, about the history of sports, right? If you go way, way back, sports started out with like spear throwing competitions and wrestling and, of course, running and swimming. And what you'll notice about all these things is that they're basically metrics for the competence level of a man who's hunting or fighting, because early humans, of course, they were basically hunter-gatherers, and they were constantly warring with other tribes. Then you go a couple thousand years later, and you got the Romans and the Colosseum and the gladiators. That was a sport to them, but it was basically a simulation of war, right? That was the form of entertainment, because it's in our biology as men. We want to form strategies with other men on how to hunt down the woolly mammoth, or how to win the war. We like stories like Alexander the Great and how he toppled Darius, and how strategic he was and how he did it, and how brave and courageous the warriors were. And so because we don't live in that world anymore, where we would literally fight other tribes, we want to scratch that itch by watching sports. So the gladiator games, you know, that's what, 2,000 years ago. But even today, you have boxing and UFC, which are probably the most brutal sports that still simulate that human male desire primarily to fight and compete in a physical, violent way. So loyalty to a team, how does that break down? You aren't loyal to the players because the players can get traded and you're still loyal to the team. You aren't loyal to the team itself because the team itself can be traded. For example, the LA Lakers are originally from the 10,000 Lake State of Minnesota. That's why they're called the Lakers. But when the team moves, you aren't loyal to the team anymore. You're loyal to your town. So that's why it's called your hometown, you know, welcome your hometown Chicago Bulls, because you're not loyal to the players or the team. You're loyal to the franchise within your home state, within your hometown. So does that layer of tribalism make sense when you think about it? Like, why should I care that much about intercity beef between, say, Chicago and Los Angeles? I suppose some people latch on to things like that, but it's from a capitalist perspective, there simply isn't enough incentive. What do you gain by the Chicago Bulls winning? So they have a parade. Okay. How do you benefit from that? You get to celebrate these other players and, you know, the big bonuses they got because they won the championship, and you say, good for you. And, but you don't gain anything from that. You just bought their jersey for 1,000% markup. You know, it cost $5 to make. You bought it for $100, and you're wearing this grown man's name on your back like you're their prison bitch. And Have some self-respect, dude. You cheer, hey, you got rich. You got a bonus for winning the championship. Congratulations. I hope you buy a nice house with that. If you go to Las Vegas and you see your favorite player, LeBron James or someone in the VIP section of the club, and you try to go up to him and you say, yo, we won, and you're wearing his jersey, he's not going to say we won. He's going to look at his bodyguard and point to you and have his bodyguard just manhandle you out of there. Who is we when you say we won? You didn't win anything. He won. He won when you paid 1,000% markup on his jersey. He got richer. You didn't win anything. You're not part of the team, bro. You're just a mark. He won. And the owners of the team won. So I'm not saying to never care about sports. Care about sports when your incentives align with the team. So, for example, if you own real estate or a bar outside of Wrigley Field, then you should care about the Cubs, because how well the Cubs are doing will directly impact your business. So it makes business sense for you to care about the Cubs. Your interests are aligned. You know what I mean? If you're the owner, like Mark Cuban, you own the Dallas Mavericks, then you should care about the Mavericks. How the team does directly impacts your bottom line. Professional sports is like a capitalist long con that preys on the natural instinct of men to want to feel like they're part of the winning team. Men just have that instinct. They want to get together with their buddies and hunt down the woolly mammoth. It's like a simulation for them to think, oh yeah, me and LeBron James, we won the championship. Bro, you didn't win anything, bro. LeBron James won your money when you paid $15 for a hot dog and $15 for a Bud Light. He won your money. You won nothing. You got manipulated. You got brainwashed by a capitalist system that created professional sports to prey on you. Professional sports is just capitalism. Rooting for these teams is the same thing as rooting for your favorite company. I like Apple. I'm rooting for the Apple stock price to go up. The only time you should root for a team is if you're sports betting and you're betting on them. Then you should root for them because your interests are temporarily aligned. And if you're going to just bet on them all season, then by all means root for them. Then I wouldn't criticize you. I'd say, yeah, that makes sense. I hope your team wins. I hope your team makes you some money. But it's the same thing as rooting for like Apple when you don't own any Apple stock. And I guess there are Apple fanboys who do that. And my criticism is equally valid towards those Apple fanboys. They have a slightly better case even if they don't own Apple stock, because if they're a huge fan of Apple products, then they're accustomed to the ecosystem. And so they want the company to continue to prosper and do well, so they continue to release high-end products that will benefit them, so they don't have to relearn a new ecosystem on like Android or Microsoft or whatever. So I do get that. The Apple fanboy has a slightly better argument for being a fanboy than the miscellaneous sports fan, which is just a complete brainwashed idiot who's just thinking, we won, LeBron. No, dude, you won nothing. In life, you always want to be rooting for your own interests. If you're exerting labor in some way in the world and you're not doing it for your own interests, by default, you're doing it for the interests of another person. That's where that expression comes from, where it's like, bro, you either are an entrepreneur or you're making your boss rich. Well, there's nuances to that statement. I won't back that statement completely. There's some truth to it. Basically, you're making someone rich. So if it's not you, it's someone else. And sports works the same way. You need to use your time wisely. Now, there are exceptions to my rule of how rooting for professional sports teams makes you a sucker. And one exception is collegiate level sports. Now, if your sports team in college does well, that's good for you. You're an alma mater of that university now. You want your university to be in the news. You want it to be winning in different things, including sports. So it's good for your university to do well. So it makes total sense for you to root for your college sports teams. So that's a level of rooting for sports that I can totally get behind, because it aligns with your interests. It makes your university more prestigious. It makes enrollment go up. It makes it more competitive, right? When the Fab Five was dominating basketball in the 90s, enrollment to the University of Michigan went up, and that made acceptance rates more competitive and the quality of the applicant pool higher. And so that's good for you. So you do want to root for your college sports teams. The other exception is international sports, World Cup and Olympics. You do want to root for World Cup and Olympics. Why? Because this transcends capitalism. Once you talk about international sports, there are three layers. One is ideological, two is genetic, and three is cultural. Now I'll break down all three. Ideological. Let me give you an example of that. The USSR has the best hockey team, and they always win the Olympics, right? And when people compare the Russian hockey team versus the US athletes would be more fit. They'd have higher nutritional standards. They'd be bigger and stronger. Yet the Russians would win. So you ask yourself why? It's because the Russian team would play like a hive mind. They were all playing collectively, and they would always know where the puck was going because they were in the minds of the other players on their team. And so it's making an argument for collectivist thinking and communist thinking. When you see that their team outperforms the US team, which is hung up on individual accomplishments and wanting to get their individual stats up, it raises that ideological question. Is this a superior way to run a country as well? It's clearly a superior way to run a hockey team. And so there's an ideological battle being fought. And if you believe in your country's ideology and you want your country to prosper and become wealthy, obviously for personal pride and respect, you want your country to do well and succeed on the world stage, then you want to root for your country's team to win in the Olympics and the World Cup. And so when you're playing sports at the international level, it isn't just a sport anymore. It's a battle of ideologies. And the Chinese know this. That's why they put so much effort into their opening ceremony. And that's why they train their athletes from childhood. Basically, if they see potential in you to be, at the Olympic level, they'll just pluck you out of school and just make you focus on that one sport 24/7 for the next decade straight, just to increase their chances of winning golds. And, some may argue that's inhumane or something, but as the country's leaders understand that results are all that matters. And when a country is getting results, it raises the question of, well, what is that country doing right? Maybe we should be emulating their system. So there's a soft propaganda battle going on there. And as someone who wants to root for your own way of life, your own culture, your own country's values and ideologies to succeed in the world, you want to be rooting for your country's sports teams as well, because your interests are very aligned with your country's sports teams doing well. That respect and recognition on the international stage, it indicates to the world that your way of life is superior. Frankly, that leads to people emulating your way of life and to embracing your ideologies. The next point I want to talk about is genetics, but I want to keep this segment a little bit short because I don't want to get canceled off YouTube. But genetics is a part of why you want to root for your international teams. Now, for a multicultural country like the United States, that argument is a little bit washed down, but a lot of other countries are ethno states. And so you're basically making the argument that your genetics produce the best athletes. And so I'm going to finally circle back on the point about the Japanese being self-hating that I opened this video with. You see, the Japanese are so insecure about having short legs, but the Japanese hold the world record for the longest ski jump. And when they study the aerodynamics of how they accomplish that, it's because not only are they small and have high muscle density for their size, but also the ratio of the length of their short legs to their torso created for the best conditions to create the longest ski jump. And so that's an example of leaning into your perceived weaknesses and making them strengths. You see, the Japanese, they don't like the optics of that. They don't like thinking, oh, I have short legs, but hey, you're the best ski jumpers in the world. Your people, your genetics produces the best ski jumpers. That's something to be proud of. So you should lean into that. Another example is how the Japanese made it furthest in the World Cup out of all Asians. And it's not because their athletes are able to keep up with the athleticism of the Brazilians or a lot of these other countries, but the Japanese were able to get so far, and they should have made it to the finals if they didn't choke in the penalty kicks. But the reason they're able to make it so far is because they're very precise in how they kick the ball. They score mostly off of those field kicks. They can't compete so much in brute athleticism, but they can be more precise than you. So when they get those field kicks, they'll curve the ball right into the corner of the net. They're excellent at that. It's part of their culture to be very precise and to repeat things until you're perfect. Kaizen, right? And so you see that reflected in the way they play sports, and it leads to results. And so that's an example of why you want to be rooting for your country at the international level in sports, because you're telling the world our genetics are better than yours. But towards the end of that, I also went into culture, which is the third point. And so those are the three reasons why you want to root for international sports. There's ideological, genetic, and cultural. And the three overlap quite a bit. But ultimately, it boils down to self-interest. You want to be allocating your time rooting for things that benefit you in terms of increasing your power, respect, and money. And international sports do that, as well as collegiate level sports for your alma mater. So those are the two layers of sports that you want to be rooting for, not the whole artificially made rivalries between the Charlotte Hornets and the Oklahoma City Thunder, when these cities don't care about each other at all. And these capitalist systems are built so the Hornets think they can mess with the Thunder? Bro, these cities don't care about each other. Stop creating artificial rivalries. Real rivalries have to do with our own power and respect in the world. So real rivalries have to do with ideological, philosophical rivalries between competing states. You want to be rooting for your country to dominate the world order. You see, when your country's ideologies are embraced by other countries, it grows your network of trading partners. You can create alliances, like the United States has a Five Eyes alliance, a spy network between all the other English-speaking countries. And so by doing that intelligence sharing, it streamlines a lot of their overhead in terms of like espionage and things like that. And those kind of cost savings trickle down to you as a citizen of those countries. And so you can come up with defense alliances, you can come up with, generous treaties. And so you basically, there's an ideological battle being fought for the world order. And you want your country's ideologies to be embraced by the world, because that makes you richer, it makes you safer, and it makes you more respected in the world. And so that's why, as an American, you do really want to care about international sports and how the Americans do. And the World Cup, we need to have a presence there. So a lot of these other countries that are on the fence about whether they should latch on to China or the US, there's a soft propaganda happening. And when they see that the US is winning in everything, they're going to think the US is simply more competent. Their cultural ideas, their ideologies, and we'll skip genetics, so the US is multicultural. Their way of life is superior. And so we should be embracing them. That's the future. And that's the propaganda war you want to be winning. And you do it, and in many ways, that war is fought through sports. So this is important stuff. And this is the kind of thing you want to be rooting for. And, to make things even simpler, when you talk about what is a sport, which should qualify as a sport, well, this idea would be incredibly unpopular for many reasons. I think that we should have our active military be considered athletes. And we should be paying them more money to watch them battle and have our favorite snipers and, have stats and, like baseball cards of like, oh, this sniper's headshot ratio is so sick, and have Nike sponsor him so he can have like a Nike check on his sniper gun. You know what I mean? Because I want people in the world to recognize that the U.S. military is the most competent and proficient military. And their snipers are the most precise. I wish they would create sports out of that. And I wish there was some Vegas sports betting that was allowed on that, because I would be betting money on the United States every time. So that would be awesome. But something tells me that idea wouldn't pick up traction. But anyways, I'm near the top of the lift here, so I got to get going. But, thanks for listening. Take it easy.